Far more than we think. Making Sense of Spirituality by Angelo. Chapter 33. Life as a Model. The word model has multiple uses. It may mean a person posing for art, or an ideal example, or a particular version, or a physical or systematic representation. My use on this occasion is the latter one. The purpose here is not to describe my version of how life should be, but to represent a model of how a spiritual life could be. A model in this context is of course a representation of reality, rather than reality itself. A business model is not an actual business, but a description of how a business works. And all of us are entitled to have our own model for life. In truth, each of us already has our own model of how life works. It is built up in our minds over our lifetime, and we will ideally be constantly shifting and adapting. A large part of our individual model will have been given us during our childhood experiences, and as we've already discussed, much of it will reside in our subconscious mind. Our mental model will have similarities and differences with all sorts of other people, but in totality it will be unique. I'm now going to make a potentially very annoying statement, which is that all mental models are false. None of us has the complete picture, yet we all think we do. Every single one of us believes our beliefs, because a belief would not be a belief unless we believed it. The problem is that we all see the world through our own eyes and believe we know what's best for us. The truth is, we don't know. It takes courage and wisdom to admit to ourselves that we don't know what's in our own best interests. Once we accept that we don't know best, we open up the possibility of something even better to happen. Prior to this, we limit our own lives by living them through a set of false beliefs. It's very important to say here that this is never a question of being right or wrong. It's simply a matter of whether or not a new idea or belief serves us better than a previous one. There's no right or wrong because no single person has all of the answers. Once we realize that every single belief that we have has the potential to be self-limiting, it makes it much easier for us to consider new ones. One of the key components of the vast majority of individual models is the idea that we will only be happy if certain things happen. This conditional happiness clause in our own personal contract of life means we can never win the happiness game, because there will always be something missing. Either we don't get what we want, or we do get it and then we create the next requirement. Also, once we do get something, there's always the possibility that we might lose it again. So basically, we constantly want something more, or worry about losing what we have. Most of the time, we do both. This mindset is a recipe for discontent and unhappiness, and most of us have it as part of our model. The spiritual model is to be grateful for what we have, to let go of any attachment to what we have and what we think we want, and to simply allow our innate happiness to rise up from within. Spirituality creates the perfect strategy for winning the random coin toss. Heads we win, and tails we don't lose. When we are able to apply this simple idea to health, wealth, and relationships, our attitude toward life can quickly change. A related common component in our models is the belief that we have to have goals. The whole world seems to be driven by goals and objectives, so we believe we must have them too. The spiritual model acknowledges the usefulness of plans and goals in detailing action and setting direction, but does not buy into the need for these goals to be achieved. Having an attachment to an outcome is where problems arise. The spiritual way is to focus on the journey rather than the destination. Investing in the process makes sense, but living our lives by depending on outcomes does not. All that's really required is that we do our best in any situation. Perfection is unattainable, but when we do anything less than our best, we let ourselves down. Fulfillment is the result of doing our best without any attachment to the outcome. Instead of doing things in order to achieve goals and be happy, we instead do things because we are happy and for the sheer joy of just doing them. Another part of many models is the tendency to understand materiality by seeking to identify what a thing is made of and also who made it. This philosophy of cause and effect means there has to be a reason for everything, and more often than not, this leads to blame. Something happened, and therefore someone must have caused it to happen and must be to blame. This blame culture is very prevalent and very negative. Spirituality does not need anyone to blame. When we extend this causal thinking to the big philosophical questions of who or what made the universe and what preceded it, then we go into an infinite tailspin, because each potential answer raises another question. The spiritual model identifies life itself as the source of all that is, and potentially brings an end to the intellectual merry-go-round. Life is the universal source, the unified field which manifests itself in infinite ways, and out of which all matter is made. Life is independent of time and hence is eternal. Life just is. And we are a tiny part of life, and therefore we just are. Spirituality answers the question posed by Shakespeare. We can choose to be or not to be. We obviously exist, but we can choose a model where we identify our true spiritual selves as being a part of the universal energy of life, rather than a separate, finite, physical life form with no purpose. We can choose to be and really experience being. We can be a human who is being a human being. One of the difficult parts of any individual model is the question of purpose. Without a framework in our minds for what life is all about, it can be bewildering. Creating offspring and being a parent is an obvious one, but not everyone is lucky enough to be able to do this. Making a contribution is another common theme, but even this can be problematic if we're not really sure what we are contributing to. Being happy is something we would all like, but often that doesn't seem to fit the bill as an overall purpose for life. For many of us, this overarching purpose is a loose end in our individual models for life. It's too big a question to answer, and we instead focus on short-term goals and things to look forward to. We set our intentions around wanting to be or getting a certain thing without really knowing what our underlying reasons are for wanting it, or indeed what we are lacking, which is driving our wants in the first place. The spiritual model has answers for these age-old problems. The spiritual person realizes there is nothing lacking and nothing to prove. Our purpose is to grow and evolve and to help others do the same. We see that our choice in every situation is either to act from ego or from spirit. If we choose ego, we perpetuate fear, whereas if we choose spirit, we act with love. As we raise our own level of consciousness, so we help to raise the consciousness of those around us. We bring love into the world through our attitudes and behaviours, and others then respond in kind. Some of us do this on a small scale, and others on a much larger scale. But everyone who adopts a spiritual model will not only make a difference to the lives of others, but also lead a wonderful life themselves and contribute to the collective evolution of humankind. Spiritual principles can lead us to a model for life that's very different from the one that we started with. Each of us is blessed with the free will to choose our own individual model. Whatever our beliefs may be at this moment, there's nothing to stop us from changing them if we want to. There's no right or wrong answer, and there's no ultimate judge other than our own conscience. All of these spiritual components are, of course, entirely optional, but they do accord both with ancient wisdom and modern thinking. Can also say from experience that they work. If there is any aspect of our lives that we are unhappy with, the solution is to change our beliefs. Treating the symptoms will not cure a disease. A lasting cure requires dealing with the underlying cause, and the underlying cause of our experience of life is our perception, which is born of our beliefs. True bliss will only come when we stop seeking other people or things to make us happy. We become free when we let go of attachments and outcomes, allow ourselves to be who we really are, live as unconditional love, and embrace a meaningful purpose for our lives that adds something to the totality of humankind. The model for life is to live life as a model, as best we can.